the Cayman Islands, 2002. A courier walks into a branch that exists only on paper. No employees, no security cameras, just a mailbox and a stack of blank account forms. Behind that mailbox sits over 50,000 client accounts worth $2.1 billion. Nobody in London ever asks who owns them. A decade later, drug cartels in Mexico will be depositing so much cash into this same bank that they'll custom-build wooden boxes shaped to fit exactly through its teller windows. This is the story of how the fifth largest bank on earth became the accountant for the deadliest cartels in the world, and how, when they got caught, not a single executive spent a single night in jail. Before we get into how deep this really goes, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. It's wild seeing how far this channel reaches. Now, let's go back to where it all started.
In 2007, Mexico was a battlefield. While the streets ran red with the cartel wars, a different war was fought inside the walls of global finance. This wasn't just crime, it was industrial engineering. Cartels designed custom wooden boxes built to the exact dimensions of bank teller windows. Every millimeter was optimized, thousands of US dollars stacked with mechanical precision sliding into the system like clockwork. Armored convoys moved through the dark landscape, carrying the lifeblood of the drug trade. This wasn't petty cash, it was an avalanche of paper. Over $7 billion in physical currency flowed from Mexico into the US banking system. A river of illicit money turned legitimate by a signature. The volume was staggering. In vaults across the border, piles of cash reached the ceiling, the physical manifestation of a global drug empire's success. Inside the bank, red flags were everywhere. Thousands of alerts piled up on the desks of overwhelmed compliance officers, buried under paperwork. Executives didn't stop the crime, they changed the rules. Mexico was downgraded from high risk to standard, on par with Canada. While the bank reclassified reality, the streets told a different story. The violence was ignored as long as the cash kept flowing. The bank stood tall, a cold glass monolith detached from the chaos it helped finance. A monument to a system where profit outweighed every consequence. The optimized crime was complete. A single wooden box serves as a haunting reminder of the day the banking system became the cartel's ally. In December 2012, the US Department of Justice announced its resolution. HSBC would pay $1.92 billion in fines and forfeitures. At the time, this was the largest penalty ever levied against a bank in American history. Prosecutors laid out how HSBC had laundered money for cartels, responsible for thousands of murders. The bank's compliance failures had directly enabled sanctioned regimes to move money through the US financial system. And then came the part that stunned even seasoned prosecutors. No HSBC executive was criminally charged. No one went to trial, no one went to prison. Instead, the Justice Department entered into a deferred prosecution agreement. This legal arrangement allows a bank to avoid criminal conviction as long as it meets certain conditions over a 5-year period. Assistant Attorney General Lanny Breuer argued that indicting a bank this size risked destabilizing the global financial system. He feared a domino effect that could cost thousands of jobs and shake markets far beyond the bank itself. Critics called it exactly what it looked like, a price tag, not a punishment. 1.92 billion sounds enormous until you realize HSBC's revenue that year alone was over $80 billion. Some analysts calculated the fine amounted to roughly 5 weeks of the bank's profit. For an institution laundering for organizations responsible for a war that killed over 100,000 people, the message seemed clear. If you are big enough, the consequences are simply a business expense. HSBC did make changes. The bank poured hundreds of millions of dollars into rebuilding its compliance division, hiring thousands of new staff dedicated to anti-money laundering monitoring, and the 5-year deferred prosecution period ended in 2017 with the bank deemed to have met its obligations. On paper, the story closes there. Reform achieved, lesson learned. But questions never fully went away. Investigative journalists and former compliance insiders have continued to raise concerns about whether the culture that allowed $881 million in cartel money to flow undetected was ever truly dismantled or simply pushed further out of public view. No later scandal on the scale of 2012 has surfaced, but critics point out that's also exactly what a well-hidden operation would look like. The Sinaloa cartel didn't disappear either. It fractured, adapted, and continues to move billions of dollars through the global financial system every year, using whatever institutions are willing, knowingly or not, to look the other way. Somewhere in that $200 billion of unmonitored wire transfers were payments that funded cartel violence directly. Weapons, bribes to Mexican officials, payroll for enforcers responsible for some of the deadliest years in the country's history. The people who died because of that money were never in the courtroom when HSBC's lawyers negotiated the settlement. Their names never appeared in the deferred prosecution agreement. The only names that mattered were the banks and the number on the check. Whether the reforms since 2012 have actually closed the door or simply taught the world's biggest banks to launder more carefully is a question nobody in a position of power seems eager to answer. What we do know is this: in the entire history of the case, exactly 0 HSBC executives faced criminal charges for laundering money for two of the deadliest cartel networks in modern history. The boxes stopped fitting through the teller windows, but the money never stopped moving. If this story shocked you, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one.